So a lot of people ask me, Ben, you're living this backpack lifestyle, you've got this online business and you can do pretty much all of it from a computer, but how in the heck did it start? Did it just come right out of the gate and making, millions of dollars in this business, or was there a build up? Well, I've never believed in the whole lottery mindset. All of it was a slow grind coming from absolute nothing all the way to where I am now. And today I want to tell you what that process actually looked like, because a lot of you have said you wanted to know what it was. So let's dive in. Let me show you how I went from absolute zero working in a brick and mortar to making millions of dollars from a backpack. All right, let's do it. Okay, so my journey into, this whole computer-based business that I could run from anywhere on the planet with an internet connection and a laptop that I could fit into a backpack, it was not like what I think most people think it is. A lot of people think that you can just dive in and start doing this and, it's all one moment that leads to everything. And that, may be the case for some people, but for me, it was absolutely not that. For me, this business has been something that I started off very humbly in a basement, actually not even in a basement, it was actually in a job that I had, which was a mattress store, and it just sort of grew from there. And so I wanted to sort of walk you through what this looks like if you start like I did and you go from the ground up. So before we get into this, you need to know a little background. I started off as a chiropractor. I went to school with, the idea that I was going to help people in healthcare before I even knew I was going to be a chiropractor. And so I was a biology major. And when I was doing all this, somewhere along the way, I figured out, hey, I wanted to be a chiropractor. So, after 3-4 years of regular college, getting a degree, and I actually didn't have to go the full 4 years to get my degree because I found a loophole where I was able to finish my degree while I was doing my advanced degree. And so I ended up going to, all in all, to become a doctor of chiropractic, to get a biology degree and all that good stuff. I ended up going to school right around 7.5 years. And that was finding everything that I could so that I could work straight through, no breaks, and to finish early. So went in, did this, and basically what happened was as I was getting ready to, take the final test to become a full-blown chiropractor, well, I had to get a job. So I worked in a clinic for a little while, but also I also worked in a mattress store. And I'll save you the, how I ended up there for a little while. But when I was in this mattress store, it was the perfect job for a guy that was studying for a test to become a full-blown doctor of chiropractic. And this is why. I would go in, there would be maybe 4 to 10 people come in the entire day, and then the rest of the time I was studying for my test that I had coming up and various other things. Now, if you're thinking about this, there's only so much time you can study for a test without going insane. So what did I do the rest of the day? What I did the rest of the day while I was in that mattress store, and I wasn't, I was done with all my jobs there, with all the things that I needed to do in that place. From that point, I had to sort of occupy my time. And so a couple hours every day, I would have time to learn, marketing on the internet. And so that's what I did. I started studying marketing on the internet, and that led to the first, what I call windfall. And this was the thing that, it's so not much money now compared to what I do, but it was so big for me. And so one day, I got into this domaining thing. If you've never heard of domaining, what it basically is, domains online, www.something.com, that has value just like real estate. And so I started figuring this out, and one of my first big, I say big, but my first things where I made money was I went in and I sort of learned the ropes as to what was valuable versus what wasn't in terms of domain names. And what I did was I went and registered a domain for under $10, and then I took that domain to auction and ended up selling that domain for around $200. And the first time this happened, it absolutely blew me away, because I was like, oh, well, there's value in this digital world. You don't have to be in a brick and mortar. You don't have to do all this stuff. But that was the first time. I bought a domain, and this is probably like 2008, 2009. I bought a domain for under $10, registered it from the ground up, didn't buy it from anybody else, but then went and sold it to someone who had a reason to use the domain, and it was valuable to them. They bought it for over $200. And so that was the first big thing that I did. Now, right after that, I passed my test, I got my office opened, and this was the next big thing for me in terms of how I made money. I opened up my office, and I didn't have any patients. The first week, I think I had one person show up the entire first week into my office when I was a chiropractor. And so, you know, I figured I've got to do some better marketing at this. And I didn't have a whole lot of extra money to go around at that point, so I had to use what was there. And this entire time I'd been working in a mattress store, not only was I doing the domaining thing, but I was also learning all these cool things about how to market a business online. And so I started taking that knowledge and I started applying it. And within about 6 months, you know, using Facebook ads was sort of an early thing then, very, very early on. I started to get people to come into my office just by marketing myself on Facebook. So I was doing some things with ads. I was doing some things with just organic marketing with my personal profile and, of course, my business page on Facebook. And with that, I was able to get people to come through the door. So that was sort of my second thing is, you know, not directly like I just made money without a brick and mortar, but I made some money. And that's the thing is it was using the internet. So at that point, what you were probably starting thinking is okay, that's cool, Ben, you made some money. But was it really scalable? And the answer was absolutely no, because they had to be local to me to do that. But that led to something else down the road. And that sort of led me to the next thing is people saw that I was growing my business. This was the third time I was really making some good money with online. People saw that I was bringing people into my business and they said, Adkins, can you do for our business what you're doing for your chiropractic practice? And so I started getting hired as a chiropractor in my, you know, all my free time because I was getting busy at this point because the internet stuff was working. People started hiring me to come in and to help them with their business marketing. So I ended up founding what I would now call a digital services agency because other businesses local to me needed help with the internet. And so that was really the third big thing that I did to make money online. Now, each time that I figured out something new, we started making more and more money because of it. Now, this is where things start to get really, really interesting. I had people that were asking me to help them with their business, right? So I've got 3 things that have worked for me so far, but I have other people that are starting to ask me, but I'm so busy with my chiropractic practice because I'm still sort of in that mode at this point. I have so many people that are asking me for help to come do it, but I don't have the time to actually go in like with these first few digital marketing, digital service clients. So I have to figure something else out. So I get this genius idea, like I was the first person to ever think of it, that, hey, well, if I can't go into help them personally, at the very least, I can write down some things that I'm doing that are working and I can sell that to them. And so I wrote my first ebook. And this first ebook, you know, was just designed to go out and help people. And people bought this on a very local level, but people bought this and it was just designed to help them with Facebook and Facebook ads, things like that. Nothing too complicated, but that's what my first I wrote down what's up here. And this is how I make most of my money these days, by the way. But I wrote down what's up here and I put it on paper and sold a digital version of it. So there was no cost to actually put it on paper or, you know, actually make a book. We just sold a digital ebook, a PDF to these folks. And so that was going well, and you know, I had a few things there, but then I started like really coming up with some like fun things that I thought, hey, this is a business in itself. And like the first thing that I sold that was like really, really successful, and this is one of my favorite stories because this is like where I was like, oh my gosh, this is something, you know, this is something. I figured out that all the local law enforcement would publish, you know, sort of, you know, who had gotten arrested, who had sort of had to do things down at the courthouse. This was all public domain information that had been put out there. And what I figured out is you could put together what we call a local gossip newsletter based on that. And people would pay a subscription fee, a low one, but like $7 a month. They would pay for you to compile this information and make it easy for them to, you know, access. And so I was doing this on a very low level. I tried to keep people's names out of it as much as possible, but this was something that people wanted to know. They wanted us to go down to the courthouse, figure this stuff out, and publish it out because it was public domain, and they'd pay us a subscription fee, and this was all digital. Now, once I figured this out, I was doing that on sort of a low level, but I was like, there are other people all over the country that could do this. And so I wrote this stuff down, and I'll never forget this. I published this thing out, and for some reason I had published this on this network that was specialized in selling digital products, and for some reason a lot of people thought this was really good. And once they bought it, once they went through it, They wanted to sell it to people that trusted them. And I had no clue what affiliate marketing was at this point, but some people said, hey, can we promote this? And, we'll do a split, 50-50 split for the people that buy it. We'll split the money if we promote it to our people. I was like, well, okay, cool. I had no clue what that was all about, but it sounded awesome. It sounded completely awesome to me. So, I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so that happens, and about an hour after I got that message and said, yes, let's go, I just start seeing sales. And I had a notification set up on my phone that every time I got a PayPal payment, it would ding. And so it starts dinging. And it keeps dinging, and it keeps dinging, and it keeps dinging, and it keeps dinging. And so I'm sitting there, and like I said, I'd had a hard day at the chiropractic office. I'd seen a bunch of patients that day, but I'm sitting there at home exhausted, and this little thing that I'd written, and not actually written, but typed up on a PDF, this little book, that night, I got up the next morning because I had to go to sleep because I had to go to the clinic the next day. But that night, that little thing put $1,000 in my pocket. Just a few people promoting it, and it put $1,000 in my pocket. Put $1,000 in the pocket of the person that was promoting it too, but it put $1,000 in my pocket. And I thought, I'm sitting here doing the math. I'm like, how many patients did I have to see today and adjust, physically be there to make that much money? And if you go to a chiropractor, you can start doing the math there of how many that was. But the thing is I didn't have to do that work again, and I could keep selling that. I didn't have to be physically present. And that's the first time really it starts to hit me that I've got to take what's up here, and instead of translating it through my hands into something that I can physically do in a physical location, I have to start doing this stuff in a way where I can write it down and transfer the knowledge out. So that sort of hits me. Now, the interesting thing about this is when something like that happens to you, when you start that and somebody promotes something and you make that amount of money, you're in your head, you're sort of thinking, yeah, but that's never going to happen again. And this was a fluke. There's no way this happens. So, I had something else that I wrote that was sort of a skill that I picked up back in the mattress store when I was in the chiropractic office. Would help it, had helped it grow. I put that down in a PDF and I put it up, and lo and behold, a couple days after I put it up, same thing. Somebody asked, "Hey, can we promote it?" And I was like, "Sure, absolutely, you can promote it." And that night, $1,000 again. In 24 hours, $1,000 just for something I wrote that was like literally 15 pages. 15 pages this thing was, and it makes me $1,000 while I'm sitting on my butt at my house after I'd gotten home from the clinic. And so the thing that I haven't mentioned yet is this whole time, every time I put one of these things together, every time I put, one of these little PDFs together and it's selling and I make money, I'm also putting all of the people that bought this product onto an email list. So all of their email addresses are getting added. And what I'm going to end up doing with this later on, and this is what I do to this day, is every time I release something new, I can send out an email and let these people know that loved the thing that I put out before that I've got something new coming out. So instead of having to split the money the next time that I put something out, I've got my own email list that I can tell them about, and I get to make 100% of the profits on that. So what do I do from there? It's $1,000 here and there, but it's nothing consistent. So I start thinking, well, I know a lot. Marketing my practice, all the things that I've learned online, because I'm getting to be a complete nerd for this stuff. I know a lot of this stuff. What happens if I start, really going all in and I start researching things harder and I start teaching these things in my way? And so I start getting really consistent with putting out product, and not just for my benefit, but I've got people asking me, hey, Ben, do you know about this? Do you know about this topic, this topic? And if I knew about it, I'd write something about it and I would teach them the tricks that I knew. And so I start getting really consistent. Right around the time that my kiddo was born, my first kiddo and my only kiddo at this point, right around the time my kiddo was born, this is 2011, we're coming into 2011, I start saying, what happens if I get really consistent with writing material and releasing material, these 10 to 15 page things, what happens if I do that? And so I got to the point where I was just saying, I know a lot of stuff, and I started making a list of all the stuff that I knew how to do online, to market a business, to, make money, from a backpack. I didn't think of it at that point that way because I wasn't doing it from a backpack. I was still in my clinic. But I started thinking, what if I'd release this stuff, on a regular basis? So I was kicking this idea around in my head for a while, but I didn't do anything with it. It was like May because, the kiddo was born, all this other stuff was happening. But it's like May of 2011 before I really get into this, and I start saying, okay, let's go. I had this big list of things that I thought I could teach. I started writing up these PDFs. I'd get these PDFs done, and every 2 weeks I would release a product. And every time I'd make a couple $1,000. A couple $1,000 every time. And then it happens. I'm getting ready to go to this event. This is going to be one of my first online marketing events, because now I'm just fascinated with all this. And it was in, I'm trying to think of where it was. I can't even remember where the event was. But I'm about to go to this event, and for some reason, one of the products that I released, people just gravitated towards, and it was called the Evil Facebook Magician, right? So that was the name of the product, and the whole product was just me teaching some tricks that most people on the planet didn't know. I was such a nerd for Facebook at this point and marketing using Facebook that I knew a lot of things that I realized nobody else did. So I wrote down like 5 things that like most people actually had no clue of. And so this thing goes live and it explodes. And I go from a position to where I had, been selling 200-300 copies of something, and all of a sudden I sold 2,000-3,000 copies of this. And that was really interesting, because there was a chunk of change that came through really, really quickly. Now, what I wanted to sort of get across here is it's not that I knew at the time this was going to be the thing that broke. I actually thought this was just like one of my worst products yet, because it was just, instead of being a step-by-step, it was just a bunch of random, this is how you do this, that weren't really necessarily connected. So I didn't think this was going to do good at all, but all of a sudden, here it goes. It shoots through the roof. And what I attribute that to is consistency. I got really consistent with writing, so my writing got better. My ability to market what I was writing got better. And then I just happened to connect something that I was into with what sort of was people were interested. So I caught a wave on my surfboard, right? And so we put this product out. It does really, really well, and it sort of puts me on the map. There are people right now watching this that's the first product they ever bought from me way back then. And so from this point, you gotta keep in mind, this is like a $7 product. This is a $7 book that I'm putting out, and I'm not charging a whole lot. But at this point, I was saving money. I didn't have to spend this money. I was making my own salary at the chiropractic office, so I was putting this money back. And so I started, putting together quite a bit of a bank account, because this was making me a few $1,000s at a time, and then it was $5,000-$10,000 at a time. And, I start sort of growing this, and we'll get back to that. At this point, I start thinking, well, I want to keep growing. This is going well, and people seem to really enjoy what I'm doing. They seem to be getting results. And so I keep going. And I look at all the people that are really successful, because at this point you start identifying other people that are doing the things you're doing. And so I started really thinking about that. What are the people that are doing really good at this and really are reaching a large audience? What are they doing? So by the end of that year, by the end of 2011, remember I just started, really seriously in late 2010 to put out a couple things. I didn't really start releasing a lot of stuff on a consistent basis until May of 2011. By the end of 2011, I had put about $50,000 in my bank account by doing this. And so I was like, I gotta invest some of this money back into this business to grow it. So I was looking around at all the people that were really good at this, and what I figured out they were doing, they were all on video. And not everybody was just writing down or putting out software or, putting out courses. The ones that were really, really good were getting their face on video so that they could, and I didn't realize this at the time, but so they could bond. So I invested in a video camera, a microphone, and, some backdrops that were terrible, by the way. You can go back and probably find some of these that are still living out there, and it was absolutely terrible. But that was it. In 2012, I focused a lot of my time on making sure my face was on camera. So not only did I have these really great products, not only was I building up a list of people that were into my products that I could, contact every time I released something, but also I started appearing on video so people could recognize my face. And by the time I got to the, mid to later 2012, this really started blowing up because people felt like they had a connection with me, and they did, because I loved talking to people, because I was just as much a nerd for this stuff as they were, and I was putting out products teaching things that actually help people. So that was that. Now, here's where things start to get really interesting. At the end of 2012 or so, I remember I'd been charging like $7, $3 to $7 to buy these products, and they were just selling a lot, and that's why I was making money. At the end of 2012, I said, it's time to scale up. And so I made a very, very huge decision that has forever changed my life. I stopped charging $7 and I started charging $100, $200, $300, $400, $500, but I would put more time and effort into the products. Now, here's what happened to my market. The market that I was serving shrunk. The customer support stuff, however, also shrunk. But here's the thing, the people that really love my stuff were making money with the stuff that I was doing before and getting results with the stuff I put out before. So they were paying for this stuff. And I remember I put out this thing, I really didn't think it was gonna work, but I put out this thing for $200-300 at the end of 2012. And I walked away and I made in about 3 or 4 days, because I was charging $300 instead of like a $7. A lot less people bought. But the people that did buy, they ended up helping me make like $300 a pop. We did like 100 sales, over 100 sales. I remember it was somewhere 120 something. So I walked out of this with $30,000. Now keep in mind, the year before I ended it with all that, but that was one weekend. And so I learned a lot. So from that point forward, this was the key. How do you go from, hey, I sold something and made $1,000, but that was about it. When I first started, or that first, domain thing from 200, how do you go from that to multi-millions every single year in sales and products? You get consistent. I started planning out on a calendar. These are the things that I want to talk about. These are the things that I'm good at. These are the things that are going on up in here. And I felt like I have been playing at a high level with marketing for a while. These are the things that I want to teach. And so instead of just sort of putting things out sort of haphazardly, I started putting together a calendar. So things started making sense and they started building on each other. This course that I sold this week builds, really nicely with the course that's coming out in 3 weeks. And so I started getting strategic and planning a calendar, and really I focused 100% on helping the core group of people that was my core buyers. And it's funny, less buyers, less people coming through the door, but more money coming through and a lot happier people that were following me pretty hardcore. So all that said, that's the journey. That's what I've gone through. At this point, things have gotten, more complicated, but still, it's pretty simple overall. I'm taking what's up here, I'm putting it either into a video like this one, or I'm doing a podcast, or I'm writing things down into, a word processor and putting out as a PDF. And that's how I've made money. And the cool thing about this is, everybody out there can do this. Everybody out there is good at something. It doesn't have to be about marketing. It can be about woodworking. It could be about basketball. It can be just about anything. And that's where I get really excited, is because this journey that I sort of stumbled into that has worked out really well for me is something that each and every person that's watching this video can do, but on a topic that they absolutely love. So I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of how I got to where I am today, what I've been doing, how I, am able to travel all over the world, have great food, see a lot of really cool things, meet some great people, hang out with really cool people all over the planet, but run a multi-million-dollar business from a backpack. That's the story. I've never actually told that before in full. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, if you did, make sure that you click, the like button below, the little thumbs up. Let me know. Also, if this is interesting to you, I'm going to be teaching a lot of things coming up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell, and that will make sure that every time we put out something like this, you will get a notification. All right, I hope you loved it. I will see you on the next video. I'll talk to you soon.